They told you to smile, so you did. To be strong, so you buried your pain. To be likable, so you became a shapeshifter. And now, you barely recognize yourself in the mirror. You function, you adapt, you say the right things. But deep down, something's off. Something feels fake, disconnected. And it's not just you. Most people have no idea they're living behind a carefully crafted mask. But Carl Jung did. He saw it, named it, and warned, the persona you wear to survive the world may be the very thing that's slowly destroying you from within. You're not exhausted because you're weak or lazy. You're exhausted because you're constantly managing a version of yourself that isn't real. The unconscious mind picks up on the disconnect, and it starts to protest. First with tension, then with anxiety, maybe even depression. That hollow ache you feel when the room goes quiet. That's not a lack of motivation. That's your soul screaming beneath the performance. The truth is, the deeper you're invested in the mask, the more distant you become from who you really are. And sooner or later, something has to give. This video isn't just about understanding the persona. It's about starting the most important conversation you'll ever have, the one with your real self. We'll explore how this mask forms in childhood, what it costs you, and how it sabotages your individuation process. But we won't stop there. I'll guide you through the subtle process of peeling it off, not to destroy you, but to finally set you free. If you've ever wondered why you feel empty despite doing everything right, stay close. The answers are already inside you, buried under the mask. There's a version of you that walks into a room and smiles, even when you're exhausted. A version that agrees just to avoid conflict, laughs when it's not funny, and hides when it actually wants to speak up. That version isn't fake, it's your persona. According to Carl Jung Psychology, the persona is the mask we wear to adapt, to belong, to survive in a world that rarely welcomes rawness. It's not a lie, it's a filter, designed to protect your core identity from rejection or judgment. But here's the danger. When the mask becomes your identity, the real self begins to vanish. You start believing you are your performance. And over time, the line between what's real and what's rehearsed blurs. Eventually, the person looking back at you in the mirror feels more like a role than a reflection. And that's when the quiet destruction begins. In Jungian terms, the persona is functional, necessary even. Without it, we couldn't operate in a social world. We all need a face that knows how to say good morning without crying, or I'm fine when we're breaking. But when that face becomes glued on, day after day, it starts to crack the soul beneath. Imagine wearing a perfectly tailored suit 24/7. It makes you look sharp and composed, but try sleeping in it. Try crying in it. Try healing in it. Many people live in this kind of suit. They mistake their outer image for their inner truth. They identify with their job title, relationship role, or online persona. And slowly, they forget how to take it off. But the unconscious mind never forgets. It knows when you've gone too long without air. When you live through your persona, life becomes functional, but not fulfilling. You say yes when you mean no. You perform what's expected and chase goals that sound impressive, but feel hollow. You may succeed, yet feel like a stranger in your own success. Why? Because your inner child never signed up for the act. That part of you longs to be seen, unfiltered, imperfect, whole. But the longer you wear the mask, the more disconnected you become from your emotional core. Anxiety grows, your energy fades. Something inside whispers, "This isn't me." That whisper is your shadow calling. That is the invitation to begin your shadow work. Not to destroy the mask, but to discover what's hiding behind it. And that leads us to the question no one really asks. Nobody chooses their first mask. It's shaped for them. As a child, you learn quickly which parts of yourself are welcome and which are too much. Maybe you were too loud, too sensitive, too curious. Maybe you were praised for being obedient, helpful, or strong, even when you felt scared. That's how the persona begins. As a survival strategy, you adapt. You learn to smile when you want to cry, to stay quiet when you want to scream. It's not weakness, it's wisdom. The unconscious mind encodes these patterns to protect you, and at the time, it worked. You gained love, safety, or approval. But over the years, that temporary shield became a permanent skin. Think about it. A kid who grew up in a household where emotions were dismissed might grow into an adult who prides themselves on being logical, yet can't access their own grief. Someone raised to be strong all the time might wear a confident persona that hides deep exhaustion. Teachers, parents, even religion can reinforce these masks. You become the good girl, the provider, the leader, the healer. Each of those roles starts out helpful, even necessary. But Carl Jung warned, the more you identify with your persona, the more disconnected you become from your authentic self. And eventually, the inner child begins to rebel. It shows up as burnout, disillusionment, or even illness, because no soul can thrive when it's only living half a truth. So yes, the persona once saved you, but now it might be suffocating you. If you've ever felt like you're living someone else's life, there's a reason. If your smiles feel rehearsed and your success feels numb, that's your psyche knocking. Jung's individuation process isn't about abandoning the persona. It's about integrating it, understanding where it came from, why it helped, and when it stopped. That awareness is the beginning of shadow work, and it's also the beginning of freedom. Because once you realize that you weren't born to perform, you were born to connect, you can start peeling back the layers, and what you find beneath might just surprise you. At first, wearing the mask feels safe, even smart. You're accepted, respected, maybe even admired. But slowly, something starts to ache deep inside. You laugh at jokes you don't find funny. You say yes when everything in you wants to scream no. You perform, impress, achieve, and still feel empty. That's not failure. It's a soul calling for attention. Jung believed that this quiet ache is a symptom of the split between the persona and the unconscious mind. When who you are on the outside no longer matches what lives inside, dissonance builds. And dissonance, left unresolved, turns into anxiety, fatigue, and a haunting sense of meaninglessness. Many people who seem fine on the surface are secretly exhausted, not just physically, spiritually. They feel like imposters in their own lives. They wake up tired, not from lack of sleep, but from decades of pretending. They achieve goals that don't fulfill them. They play roles that drain them. And no matter how hard they try to be good enough, it never feels like home. That's because the individuation process, the journey toward becoming your whole self, is being delayed. You're feeding the outer image while starving, the inner child. And eventually the child stops knocking and starts shutting down. That's when the mask no longer just hides pain. It becomes the pain. Jung warned that ignoring this inner disconnection has a price. The more we deny our truth, the more symptoms appear. Depression, creative blocks, chronic tension, relationship sabotage. These aren't signs of weakness. They're signs of suppression. The shadow work begins when we stop medicating the symptoms and start listening to them. What if your anxiety isn't a disorder, but a message from the parts of you that never got to speak? What if your burnout is your soul begging you to be real? The cost of the mask is steep, but so is the reward of removing it. And that's when you'll start to realize something else is hiding behind the curtain. The persona isn't just a mask you wear. It's also a contract, a silent agreement you make with the world. If I act like this, you'll accept me. But every contract comes with fine print. And in this case, the cost is everything you have to hide to keep the illusion going. You repress anger because it's unprofessional. You swallow sadness because it's too sensitive. You mute creativity, curiosity, rebellion, because they don't fit the script. This is where the shadow is born. In everything you disown, just to stay liked, hired, or praised. Carl Jung Psychology teaches that the shadow isn't evil, it's exiled. The shadow and the persona are not enemies, but they're constantly at odds. The more polished and controlled the persona becomes, the louder the shadow screams in the background. And yet, most people don't realize this. They think their frustration, guilt, or bursts of rage are just bad moods. In truth, those emotions are the repressed parts trying to break through. A man who always appears strong might carry a shadow full of fear and vulnerability. A woman who's always nice might be sitting on years of unspoken anger. The unconscious mind stores it all. And when it builds up, it doesn't ask for permission to spill over. It just does. Living from the persona while denying the shadow creates a split in the psyche. It's like trying to walk while dragging a heavy bag you pretend doesn't exist. Eventually, the bag rips open, often at the worst time. A panic attack before a meeting, a meltdown over a small comment, a sudden, unexplained sadness on a happy day. These are signs your inner truth is tired of being caged. True healing. The inner child begins when you stop judging these eruptions and start listening. They're not sabotaging your life. They're trying to save it. But for that to happen, you must gather the courage to look at what's behind the mask and start integrating it. Removing the mask isn't about burning everything down or abandoning your social identity. It's about slowly reclaiming the parts of you that were hidden away to be loved. Carl Jung never suggested we erase the persona, only that we stop confusing it with the self. A powerful way to begin is to notice the small lies you tell daily, smiling when you're hurting, agreeing when you disagree, staying silent when your soul wants to speak. These subtle betrayals build up. When you choose honesty, even in tiny moments, you take a step toward freedom. That's shadow work. Not slaying a monster, but sitting with it and asking why it's there in the first place. One essential practice is learning to observe yourself in real time. Pay attention to how your voice shifts around certain people, or how your energy contracts when you feel judged. These aren't random behaviors. They're echoes of wounds buried deep in the unconscious mind. Try journaling every time you feel fake, disconnected, or emotionally numb. Don't judge what you write. This isn't about fixing yourself. It's about seeing yourself. Over time, you'll start to connect the dots. I learned to please to avoid punishment, or I hide my ambition because it once made someone feel threatened. These insights are pieces of the individuation process, bringing your truth out of exile. It's also vital to reconnect with the voice of your inner child, the one who learned early on that being too loud, too sensitive, or too different meant rejection. Give that part of you permission to exist. You can start with symbolic acts. Sing in the car like no one's listening. Paint something with your hands. Wear the outfit you always avoided out of fear of judgment. These aren't silly, they're sacred. They bypass the persona and awaken your essence. Healing isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's in choosing not to explain yourself, or letting someone love the real you, flaws and all. When you do this consistently, something incredible happens. People don't pull away, they lean in. Because truth, unlike a mask, breathes. So, now you know, the persona isn't your enemy, but it isn't your true self either. It served a purpose once, maybe even protected you. But if you keep hiding behind it, you'll keep attracting people who love the mask, not you. You'll keep living a life that looks good on the outside, but feels hollow on the inside. The unconscious mind knows the truth, and until you start listening, the anxiety, the disconnection, and the sabotage won't stop. Let me ask you something. Who are you when no one's watching? If everything you've built is based on what others expected, isn't it time to start building something real? Your real voice, your forgotten dreams, your inner child. They're all still there, waiting for you to come back. It's not about burning your past. It's about integrating your truth. That's what shadow work is really about. If this message resonated with you, take a breath and take a step. You don't have to rip the mask off all at once. Just start noticing when you're wearing it. Start choosing presence over performance. Start remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. And if you want to keep diving deeper into Carl Jung Psychology, the Individuation Process, and the journey of healing the inner child, hit that subscribe button. Turn on notifications. This is just the beginning of a much deeper transformation.